This is another incident I experienced. As I mentioned before, I don't usually see spirits myself, but the people around me often do. This time, I'm going to share a story from when I worked at a ski resort. It was around the winter of 2013. I had just finished my military service and was looking for short-term jobs before returning to college. I found an opening at a ski resort. It was in my hometown, a place I used to visit often with my uncle and friends when I was a kid. Since I loved skiing, I brought a close friend along, and both of us applied. We got the job after the interview and started working just before the official opening. Usually when people think of ski resort jobs, they think of lift attendants, equipment rentals, condo maintenance, or food courts. I worked the night shift, managing the snowmaking machines. To describe the routine, since it was early in the season, late November or early December, there wasn't much snow, so we didn't run the night ski sessions. I'd start at 6 p.m., put on my ski gear and safety boots, and eat dinner at the staff cafeteria. By 8 p.m., the lifts were turned off, and the lights were only on the slopes where we were blowing snow. The maintenance crew would place the machines in position, and we'd load the fire hoses onto the back of these bulldozer-like snowmaking vehicles. We'd ride them up, connect the hoses, turn on the machines, and make sure the snow was blowing. That was the start. After eating a late-night snack around 11 p.m., it was basically a dream job where we could sleep and just go out for spot checks every 2 hours. There were 6 of us on the night shift, including 2 permanent staff members who would leave after setting up the machines. It was me, my friend, a guy from another region, a younger guy, and the main character, a younger guy named Tolby. We worked in 3 teams of 2, rotating every 2 hours to check the machines. About a week or 2 into the job, Tolby and I became a fixed team. It was around 2 a.m., and while we were riding the lift up, he suddenly asked, "Hey, do you believe in ghosts?" I told him I hadn't seen any, but I didn't dismiss it either. He then asked, "Do you know there's one here too?" He told me he had already seen it 5 times in just 1 week, watching us from below, walking ahead on the slope, or standing inside the equipment booth. At first I just brushed it off. A few days later, while Tolby and I were heading up, the lift suddenly stopped halfway. It happens sometimes, so we called the other staff members who were sleeping. They said, "The machine is on, but it's not moving." They tried everything, even resetting the circuit breakers, but it wouldn't budge. Eventually, the permanent staff and the electrical technicians had to be called out in the middle of the night. When it finally started moving, Tolby looked deathly pale. When I asked him why, he said that while the other staff member was in the booth trying to fix it, the ghost he had been talking about was standing outside, staring intently at him the whole time. It vanished only when the permanent staff arrived. He was so terrified he wanted to quit, but we promised to stick together, so he stayed. After that, strange things started happening at our quarters. We stayed in a room with a steel door inside the maintenance building, which was off limits to everyone else. One day, Tolby woke me up, saying someone kept knocking on our door. We'd open it, but there was no one there, and the automatic sensor lights on the stairs never turned on. This happened for 5 days in a row. Other staff members started reporting the same thing. We checked the CCTV the next day, but it only showed us opening and closing the door. There was nobody else in the hallway. This went on for a month. Later, Tolby told me he heard a young woman screaming near the staff quarters around 3 a.m. every night. Always the same pattern, 3 or 4 times every 5 minutes. Around that time, an old friend of mine who had a 6th sense, Jung Hyuk, suddenly called. He said, "What are you doing lately? I have a really bad feeling." When I told him I was at the ski resort, he said he'd come over immediately. The next day, he saw Tolby, and immediately said, "You've been suffering the most. You can only see and hear, but you can't do anything about it." Jung Hyuk took us behind the quarters, did something for over 30 minutes, and came out sweating profusely. After that, Tolby said he felt nothing. The haunting had stopped. Jung Hyuk explained that a spirit who had suffered a tragic death after being assaulted in the quarters was haunting the place. He had been a lift operator, and he was searching the booths every night to find the people who had hurt him. Since we were the only men staying in that building, the spirit had been drawn to our yang energy, knocking on our door hoping to see the face of his attacker. Jung Hyuk didn't send him to the afterlife, just calmed him down. He warned us he might come back and that we should just finish the job and leave. Thankfully, nothing else happened until the resort closed for the season, and about 5 years later, the ski resort went out of business. This story begins back in 2007 or 2008. I had lost touch with my middle school friends and started at a new high school, where I met a friend named Tolby. We were close, skipping night study sessions to go to internet cafes and talk about soccer. In our second year, we were in different classes but stayed tight. One day, Tolby introduced me to a transfer student named Jung Hyuk. He was from Gyeongsang-do and had moved to the metropolitan area, but he had absolutely no friends other than us. I eventually learned why. Jung Hyuk reacted very sensitively to any request for help. If someone asked him to lift something or clean up, he would suddenly look stern and say, "Get lost," or "Shut up." A second later he'd realize, look confused, and apologize in his dialect saying, Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't talking to you. People thought he had a split personality, but Tolby and I just assumed he was a sensitive guy. We became even closer after he helped me when I felt baby spirits grabbing my limbs. I was so curious that I asked him if spirits were real. Young-hyuk sighed and confessed that he had seen spirits since childhood and was destined to keep seeing them. He had been shouting, "Get lost," to chase away the spirits who begged for help, and he often mistook his friends' requests for those of the spirits. That's why he had such a hard time making friends back home. He asked me not to pry, but I was such a curious student. I wanted to see a ghost or experience sleep paralysis so badly. I'd constantly pester him. "Is there a ghost there? What about that dark alley?" He'd always wave me off saying, "Yes, there is, just ignore it and keep walking." Then, one day at lunch, Young-hyuk suddenly looked up and said to Tolby, "I think I need to go see a spirit." Soon after, Tolby got a call that his grandmother had passed away. Young-hyuk had sensed her spirit stroking Tolby's hair before she disappeared. Later, Tolby's uncle, who was in his early 30s and preparing to open a bakery cafe, heard about this. He was a religious man but hadn't found any shamans he could trust, so he asked to meet Young-hyuk. We met the uncle on a Saturday. He was a handsome man who was torn between two locations. A busy, expensive downtown spot and a cheap, hidden location in the back streets. We visited the downtown spot first. Young-hyuk looked at it and said, "The previous tenants probably didn't even last a year." He was right. He said the place was packed with over 1,000 spirits trapped inside, and there were even talismans posted at the entrance to keep them confined. He told the uncle to avoid it at all costs. Then we went to the hidden spot. Young-hyuk said, "This is a dokaibiteo, a place of a goblin spirit." He explained that it could be dangerous if the spirit didn't get along with the owner, but he sensed that the uncle was a perfect match for the dokaibi. He suggested the uncle start there and move later if things went well. The uncle signed the lease and prayed to the dokaibi every single day as advised. It was a hidden spot, but word of mouth spread among schoolgirls so quickly that it became a local sensation without any SNS. It was so popular they couldn't afford to close for even one day. If they ever forgot to offer their respects, the power would cut out or the fridge would stop working, and the uncle would quickly realize his mistake and offer his prayers again. He ran the place successfully for 2 years. 2 years later, Young-hyuk visited the shop. He looked serious. After closing, he asked the uncle, "Don't you feel like you're getting fewer customers lately?" He then advised, "I think you need to move within a year." The dokaibi was apparently feeling dissatisfied and wanted to help the uncle grow even bigger. Following this advice, the uncle moved to a large abandoned factory site in Seongsu-dong. That location became the famous cafe in Seongsu-dong you see today. Young-hyuk was offered a lifetime of free food, but he refused, saying he didn't do it for money. The uncle is still running the business there, prospering with the help of the dokaibi.